All right. Welcome to Coffee with Marcus and Mark, the #1 stock market show on Spotify and one of the most popular market updates on YouTube. In the show, we talk about what's happening in the markets and how we are trading them. Today is Monday, July 1st. S&P has a great first half of the year, but is Nvidia too big for the S&P 500? Roaring Kitty's at it again. We'll talk about what stock he is now owning. Also, yields are rallying, which is a little bit odd considering what we had released on Friday with inline core PCE numbers, and Boeing buys a company. It's Spirit Aerosystems. We'll take a look at what's going on there. Plus, new WTF trades and what happened to our HAL and IWM positions from last week. As you can see, there's a lot to talk about, so let's go ahead and get started. If this is your first time here, my name is Mark Hodge. I'm head coach at Rockwell Trading, and it's just me today, so let's go ahead and get started. Let me go ahead and share my screen, and we'll take a look at the S&P 500. Interesting to see on Friday, we actually made new records highs in the S&P 500, but closed lower. So a new record intraday high, but not a record close. If we go to a 5-minute chart, we could see that it was quite an interesting day. We had those, or that PCE, core PCE, inflation data being released Friday morning, came in line with expectation, which was great, just showing that inflation is getting more under control and could potentially set the Fed up for rate cuts that are sooner than later. Initially, investors like this, a gap higher and some follow through, a continuation, getting up to these records, 55.23, and then pulling back, eventually getting right back to the open of the session, filling the gap, trading around where we ended up on Thursday. But then the drop continued. So a pretty decent reversal if we look at where we were at the high of Friday and the low, that's 1.3%, ending up down for Friday. And if we look at the week, we see that the S&P 500 basically giving up the week's gains there, finishing down 4 points. Not a big deal there, but interesting to see. I mean, was this sparked by some worry or concern? And I mean, this is where it really seemed more of a profit-taking day, a profit-taking event going into the weekend. And also with this trading week being a holiday week, there could have been some profit taking or repositioning, especially with it being the end of the quarter and also the end of the first half of the year. Speaking of which, June, the S&P finished higher by 3.5% for its 7 month positive month, that is, out of 8 months. So a nice move there for the S&P 500 on a monthly basis, and up 3.9% for a 6 positive quarter out of 7. So things are just plugging along, looking pretty good. The S&P finished the first half of the year up 14.5%, which is fantastic. However, the S&P 500, usually viewed as a benchmark for the overall economy, the U.S. economy, and this benchmark's a bit bloated because of Nvidia. It might not have felt as though the overall market did well and was up 14.5%. It was still positive, but according to FactSet, the S&P, if you take out Nvidia, was up 4.1% this year compared to that broad market index being up 14.5%. So a lot of that is tied to a heavyweight like Nvidia just having a huge year. And that's why you might not have felt it with all other stocks and your portfolio unless it was Nvidia heavy or if you're trading other strategies. If we look at a heat map, we could see that today Nvidia is down 1.9%. And some of the bigger movers here, Tesla 5.3%, JP Morgan 2.3%, Apple's doing well 1.9%. So that heavyweight today down, but definitely making a huge contribution to that S&P 500 gain for the first half of the year. In fact, according to FactSet, this is the worst. When we look at the rest of the market, taking out Nvidia, that 4.1% gain for the first half is the worst since 1990, with 6 of the 11 quarters actually being down in, 6 of the 11 sectors being down in the second quarter. So not evenly distributed for sure. Although today we see that there's a majority in the green. And if we go back here to the S&P 500, we see that the S&P 500 is negative. So case in point, right? We see that a majority or more than half of the S&P 500 is positive and higher for the trading session. Nvidia is down and the S&P 500 is down. For the other indices today, the Dow just really flat, but slightly positive for the session. The NASDAQ pretty flat, also slightly positive for the session. And if we take a look at the economic calendar, we see that there's some decent data being released this week. We had ISM manufacturing PMI coming out at 7 a.m. Pacific. That is 10 a.m. Eastern. Let me go ahead and refresh real quick and get back to the economic calendar. There we go. So ISM manufacturing PMI coming out slightly worse than expected. A reading below 50 would be contraction. And again, although this isn't necessarily the best news for the economy, it's good for the inflation battle and what the Fed wants to see. We see that tomorrow, Fed Chair Jerome Powell is speaking at 6:30 a.m. Pacific. That's 9:30 a.m. Eastern, right at the open. We also have JOLTS jobs at 7 a.m. Pacific, 30 minutes after the opening bell, 10 a.m. Eastern time. And then Wednesday, ADP non-farm employment numbers, pre-market unemployment claims being released on Wednesday instead of the usual Thursday release. This is because Thursday is a U.S. market holiday. In fact, on Wednesday, July 3rd, we have an early market close. So that means that with an early market close and then Thursday being a holiday, we're definitely not seeing a full week of trading with the 4th of July Independence Day holiday in the U.S. ISM Services PMI at 7 a.m. Pacific on Wednesday, 10 a.m. Eastern. Thursday we see as a bank holiday. And then on Friday, we do have the monthly jobs report. So we'll get some data on average hourly earnings, the non-farm employment picture, and the unemployment rate. So this is going to be big for the market on Friday, but typically we see that the 4th of July holiday week is a week where there's lower volatility and less volume than normal. So let's go back here and take a look at a couple of market movers here. We have to look at one stock in particular. What is more fitting for Roaring Kitty than GameStop? Well, the pet food company or supply company Chewy. If we take a look at Chewy, CHWY, here's the move that we've seen in Chewy. A big spike on Thursday. This was tied to Roaring Kitty and a meme that he posted, and then a little bit of a pullback on Friday. Today, pre-market Chewy is up and also higher at the open, although it's reversed and is now down over 5%. There was a filing showing that Keith Gill, aka Roaring Kitty, has purchased over 9 million shares of Chewy, which translates into a 6.6% stake in the company. This makes him the third largest shareholder for Chewy. So initially, some decent movement there, pulling Chewy out of this lower range and moving higher, but definitely taking a little heat today. Maybe buy the rumor, sell the fact type situation. Pardon me. Chewy, benefiting early on, but not right now from that investment. We'll see if the excitement over Roaring Kitty uh, remains true, or uh, if his well his contagious nature when it comes to posting memes and being in Reddit and forums and getting investors, or gosh, I don't even want to say wannabe investors. What could I say? Um, just I won't even go there. Let's just put it this way: is Roaring Kitty's impact over? That's the question. Let me know. I'm really curious for our viewers, for you watching this video. Do you think that his impact is over? I mean, he has some big positions in GameStop and Chewy now, so of course there's going to be some impact. But is that meme craziness that he sparked in 2021, is it now over? Let me know what you think. All right, let's take a look at another market mover, and let's take a look at Boeing. Boeing in the news for a few reasons. Right now, up just under 2%. And one thing that made headlines today, actually, if we look at Spirit Aerosystems, SPR, the ticker, Spirit gapping higher right now, up just under 3%. This comes after Boeing announced that it will acquire Spirit Aerosystems, which is a fuselage manufacturer, not the airline, in an all-stock transaction. Boeing says it will help improve Boeing's safety and image. And this so far was viewed as a positive move, since Boeing and SPR are both up. That's interesting, because most of the time when a company is buying another company, even if it's a stock transaction, the company doing the buying's down and the company being bought is higher. In this case, Boeing is also higher. There's a few other reasons that it could be moving higher, but not what you typically see with both companies being higher. Now, let's take a look at some open positions, and let's first start with WTFs. So the win the fear strategy on last week, we got into a few trades. I traded Moderna, mRNA, and Moderna actually had a really nice rally this morning, but has since pulled back a little bit. That's a bit of a shame. It looked like we were marching higher, taking out Friday's highs, and I was up on this trade, but it's pulled back a little bit, down a little bit, not a big deal here. But I'm in Moderna. Marcus is not. PDD is a trade that both Marcus and I got into, and this one has pulled back. Hasn't really seen that effect that we like to see with the WTF strategy, where there's a quick bounce higher. RTX, one that's just kind of hanging in there, not moving a whole lot. But we also had three new signals, and the new signals: Merck having a great day. So this is exactly what we want to see with WTF trades. We have this pullback and an extreme oversold conditions based on the technical indicators we use. And here we got in this morning, up nicely for the session, up almost 4%. So Merck is just a picture perfect WTF play, looking good. We might have an exit for tomorrow with a nice one-day trade. We'll have to see. PACCAR Incorporated. This one, another signal, opening a little bit higher, pulling back. Right now, nothing to do with this, but new signal. And also Disney giving us a new WTF signal. This one opening right around where it closed on Friday and pulling back a little bit. We'll see if this pullback continues, but nonetheless, WTF signal. And you probably heard us say it before, but based on our testing and live trading experiences, we expect about a 70% winning percentage. So if I'm looking at 10 trades on average, I expect 7 out of 10 to be winners and 2 of the 3 losses to be small losses, and possibly the one out of those 10 losses being a stop out. So we don't expect to get stopped out too often, but we have a stop loss in place for protection, and that would be a valid exit, as well as a technical one, which the software tells us when we check every day with this WTF strategy. So one strategy that's just a simple signal, super easy to implement, and it's one that both Marcus and I like to trade. In addition to the WTF strategy, we also like to trade the wheel. And if we take a look at the wheel, CSIQ is not moving the way that we would like. And this can definitely happen. We sold the 1550 put, and right now there's more follow through after Friday's loss. I got 50 cents on that 1550 put, so nice premium there, but pulling back a little bit. Now, if we look at where support might be, there could be some support around 14. It looked like maybe 1550 to 14 would be a little support zone that we could see. And this is where, at this point, I'm really hoping that CSIQ holds up here. One thing that is not helping CSIQ is higher yields. Higher yields on Friday, opening just kind of flat on Friday, but then throughout the day, just like the S&P 500 was pulling back, yields were spiking again. So the higher for longer idea here remains true, and this is definitely being seen by this big spike in 10-year yields over the last 2 days. That is not what we want to see for CSIQ. So hoping that this slows down and that could help that CSIQ position. But right now, it is what it is. And not trying to sugarcoat it. That's not what I wanted to see, but also understandable based on the relationship that we have between yields and solar right now. If we know that, if we recognize and can appreciate the higher yields isn't really going to help our CSIQ position. Halliburton on Friday, we closed at 33.78. So our 34.50 calls expired worthless today, opening up around 34. And this is where I was looking to sell calls again. And there was 30% annualized available, which is our benchmark. But we were looking to get a little bit more than that. And I put in an order. I was not filled. We did pull back. Now we're down about 0.75% here in Halliburton. Not a big deal. But both Marcus and I have not sold calls yet. And we'll see if we get a bit of a rebound or a move higher tomorrow, which will allow us and give us the opportunity to sell calls at that 34.50 strike. We also want to sell calls at a higher level. Right now, loving the 34.50 entry and doing well with the calls and puts that we've already sold, the premium we've collected, but now looking for this to move on up. UPS, nothing to do with this one right now, just kind of sitting tight, sitting here in this range. And then there was IWM. Both Marcus and I, we were assigned IWM at 202 here, and we pulled back and it created this new range. And on Friday, IWM closed at 202.89. So the 202 calls that we sold expired worthless. Today, we open higher. We're watching this one. Might consider another entry. I like this zone here between 198, maybe 200. So if we pull back into this, might be another opportunity ahead for us with IWM. Right now, based on my plan, based on Marcus's plan, nothing to do. Waiting on this one, IWM trading around 201. So these are the open positions that we have. IWM being closed, have a little buying power to deploy if the right opportunity presents itself. Right now, if you take a look at the overall markets, the VIX up a little bit. Crude oil also up a little bit. And the overall market, looking at the indices here, S&P, Dow flat, NASDAQ slightly higher, but not a lot of movement today. And it could be a quiet week with the holiday. With that said, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you are new to the channel, please subscribe. And if you know someone who could benefit from these videos, where we take a look at what's going on in the markets, we look at some market movers, but we also talk about trades that we're risking money on. If you know someone could benefit from this discussion, please share the video and comment. Let me know what you think about Roaring Kitty and Chewy. But before we wrap up, it's not as fun telling a dad joke without trying to beat Marcus on this one, but I do have one. And the question is, what happens if you're at an Apple store when it is robbed? You become an eyewitness. And I'll leave it at that. Thanks again for tuning in. I'll see you tomorrow. Until then, happy trading, everybody.